Hello, everyone. The following presentation is about the Student Leader Program within the Residential Life and Housing Department at Lee University, and a plan for developing this into a strong program. Lee University is a small, private, Christian liberal arts school located in Cleveland, Tennessee. Lee was founded in 1908 and is still associated with the Church of God denomination. 46% of students live on campus housing in one of the 17 housing halls and dorms. For this presentation, I'm only focusing on the Residence Life side of the Residence Life and Housing Department. The Director of Residence Life and Housing is in charge of the Assistant Director of Residence Life, who supervises 3 area coordinators. Each area coordinator supervises 4 resident directors, and each resident director is in charge of one of the dorms or halls. This is where the Student Leader Program comes into play. Each dorm or hall has between 5 to 12 resident assistants, commonly referred to as RAs, 1 resident chaplain, referred to as an RC, and 1 floor leader per floor. Resident chaplains and floor leaders are also supervised by the Director of Campus Ministries, which is not a role that is a part of Residence Life, but the Campus Ministry Department. Resident assistants are in charge of planning events for the hall, as well as disciplining and maintaining order. Resident chaplains are in charge of more spiritual elements in the hall, including leading floor leaders, and floor leaders are in charge of the Thursday night small group program, which is campus-wide in all dorms and halls. The Student Leader Program at Lee University is important because it provides educational, psychological, spiritual, and social growth for residents on campus. Research has shown that college student housing is more than just a place to live. It should create a safe environment, cooperative learning, interpersonal environmental learning, and opportunities for students to grow and develop. Students are a key part of this program because this program provides experience to these students to grow as leaders, and also because peer interaction and community encourages development. The data gathered for this presentation comes from a variety of resources. The key resource used was an interview with the resident director at Lee University. She meets weekly to supervise RAs and RCs and has a first-hand experience of how the program runs. Additionally, an interview with a student who served as RC for 2 years was used. Statistics and percentages were provided by Lee University and the Residential Life and Housing Department. I also used class reading material as well as additional outside resources, including strategic plans used by other schools to strengthen their housing departments. The data gathered through interviews and statistics has been compiled into a SWOT analysis. For the sake of this presentation, I have picked the points that I believe are most relevant. Some of the strengths of the Student Leader Program are the availability of efficient resources for student leaders. Support from RDs is consistent and helpful to RAs, and student leaders report having positive experiences in the program. Overall, this shows that students desire to be a part of the program and are learning and growing from it. Some weaknesses found within the program include training not being consistent before student leaders enter their new roles, confusions on who RDs report to, and low resident participation in student leader-run events. This shows that there needs to be a bigger emphasis on training and clear communication. Opportunities for growth within the department include utilizing new technology to help with communication, partnering with academic services or faculty to plan educational events, and using graduate students on campus who are studying leadership, higher education, and ministry as resources for the Student Leader Program. Factors that threaten the effectiveness of the program are academic demands on RAs, RCs, and floor leaders that limit the amount of time they have to devote to their role, and that students are increasingly choosing online classes or commuting over residential living. In addition to a SWOT analysis, I also listed 5 key performance indicators that show the ways in which the Student Leader Program is either meeting or not meeting their goals and objectives. Each key performance indicator relates back to one of the learning outcomes of the Residence Life program. The first key performance indicator is hall community engagement, or the average percent of residents who attend Residence Life events. The second KPI is leader development, the percentage of residential student leaders who move on to hold leadership positions the following year. The third is the graduation rate, or the percentage of full-time undergraduate students who graduate. The fourth is small group participation, the percentage of residential students who participate in Thursday evening small groups. And the final is the retention rate, or the percentage of freshman residential students who choose to enroll again after living in on-campus housing. These key performance indicators, coupled with the SWOT analysis, are what I use to create 4 recommendations for the Student Leader Program. In order to increase the percentage of students who participate in the small group program run by RCs and floor leaders, I recommend hiring a graduate assistant in charge of the small group program. This graduate assistant would be the RC's direct supervisor, eliminating the confusion currently felt by RCs about whether to report to the Director of Campus Ministries or their resident directors. He or she would meet one-on-one with the 16 RCs every other week and would facilitate additional training throughout the year in order to equip RCs to lead floor leaders. A second recommendation is to reorganize the current training program to take on a more year-long approach. This would include adding a training class in the spring before the RA role begins and eliminating the fall class, requiring all RAs and RCs to participate in all forms of training, including repeated classes or activities. And finally, it would mean adding monthly training meetings that introduce new content uniformly across all RAs and RCs. A third recommendation is to utilize technology with student leaders. This would mean eliminating office phones and allowing students to utilize their cell phones as their means of communication. Student leaders would also create a social media plan for each dorm or hall that better communicates with residents. This can include Instagram, Facebook, or other platforms of social media. My final recommendation is to increase academic and educational growth in residence life programming by providing adequate training and resources to RAs on cognitive development during spring training and summer training, and planning better quality educational events that partner with programs outside of residence life. Strategic planning can be difficult for residence life programs, especially considering not all students use residence life programs. However, it's a vital part of creating the culture and community at Lee University. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned something from this presentation, and I look forward to hearing all of your thoughts and questions.